Hello everyone, this is Rig and today we are going to discuss about the first Mauryan emperor and the founder of Mauryan dynasty, Chandragupta Maurya. He is one of the most influential figures in Indian history and still revered today as the first emperor in the Indian subcontinent. So without doing any delay, let's get into details. Introduction to Chandragupta Maurya. Who was Chandragupta Maurya? Why is he important? And what are the timelines in his historic career? Chandragupta Maurya established the Mauryan Empire in about 321 BC. So, this is just after Alexander's invasion into India. After 5 or 6 years after Alexander's death, we see the emergence of a new empire in India called the Mauryan Empire, and the founder was Chandragupta Maurya in 321 BC. His reign marked the first centralized government in South Asia. So, in the whole of South Asia, this was the presence of the first centralized government, which means a government controlled from the center by a single power. So, such kind of empire was the first time in India through the hands of Chandragupta Maurya. Key historical sources of his reign include Arthashastra, about which we have made an entire video, Mudra Rakshasa, and the accounts by Greek historian Megasthenes. So, these are the few important sources of Chandragupta's reign that we have discussed before. If you want to know about all these sources in detail, I have made individual videos regarding these topics. Chandragupta's strategies led to the overthrow of Nanda dynasty. So before Chandragupta's empire, there was the rule of Nanda dynasty. Mahapadmananda was the founder of Nanda dynasty, and the decline of Nanda dynasty happened through the hands of a ruler named Dhanananda. So Chandragupta Maurya formed strategies along with the help of Chanakya in order to overthrow the Nanda dynasty. He governed until his voluntary abdication in favor of his son Bindusar in around 297 BC. So, in around 297 BC, he abdicated the throne and went to fasting in favor of his son Bindusar, who became the next emperor of Mauryan dynasty. Now, Chandragupta's ancestry and early life. Where did he come from and how was his life in the early stages? His lineage is contested among sources. Mudra Rakshasa suggests a lowly origin. Jain accounts imply a royal connection. So, Mudra Rakshasa is a text that suggests that Chandragupta had a very lowly origin, whereas Jain accounts related to Chandragupta imply that he was from a royal family. He is described as Maurya Putra, the son of Maurya clan, and linked to the Nanda family in some text. So, not only that, in some text he is also linked with the Nanda family, and some other text also describe him as Maurya Putra, which means there was a clan called Maurya clan, and Chandragupta Maurya was the son of that clan. A pivotal figure in his rise was Chanakya, his mentor and strategist. So, Chanakya, the role of Chanakya cannot be ignored while discussing Chandragupta, because Chanakya is the person who formed strategies and trained Chandragupta to become the emperor that we know him as today. Buddhist tradition notes his association with peacock tamers called Maurya Poshaka. So there were a clan of peacock tamers who used to keep peacocks as their pet, and somehow Chandragupta was associated with those people. Early life marked by various legends, including being sold into servitude and then rising to prominence. So, the rise of Chandragupta Maurya has been a subject to different stories and legends, and thus his early life is marked by various stories and legends which project his life as a rise from rags to riches. Now, military structure and organization. How was his military structure and how did he organize his army? Chandragupta commanded an army reported by Plutarch, who is a Greek ancient philosopher, and he noted that his army ranged from about 6 lakh, including infantry, cavalry, and war elephants. Now, 6 lakh is a vast figure considering the population of those times, and there are separate regiments in his army like infantry, cavalry, and war elephant, which proves the fact that he was militarily very powerful and influential. The army played a crucial role in defeating the Nandas and subsequent territorial expansion. So, his army must have played a very important role in defeating the dynasty, the powerful dynasty of Nandas, and in the later territorial administration which he undertook. Territorial expansions. His military strategy included traditional and innovative warfare tactics heavily influenced by Chanakya's teachings. So his military strategy was not mere warfare, it had heavy strategies and warfare tactics which were taught by his mentor Chanakya. War elephant were a significant component of his military used effectively in battles to disrupt enemy formation. So war elephants were not known by the European powers and it was not significantly used by the Asian powers also before the coming of Chandragupta Maurya. Thus it was very much effective in battle and its effect was to disrupt the enemy formations. He maintained a network of spies and informants for intelligence and security. So it was not only that he fought wars, he also maintained a espionage network of highly trained spies and informants who provided him information regarding intelligence and security. Now, conquest of the Nandas. How did he overthrow the Nanda dynasty? Chandragupta's initial attempts to overthrow the Nandas failed, but he eventually succeeded in around 321 BC. So, this is very significant considering the fact that his initial attempts to overthrow the Nandas were not successful campaigns. He was subject to failure numerous times, but eventually he succeeded in around 321 BC. Now there are different stories regarding how Chanakya formulated strategies in order to give the throne to Chandragupta Maurya. But those stories may not have been completely true, but different strategies were involved, that is undeniable. Used a combination of guerrilla warfare and larger scales battle to secure victory. So he used a combination of guerrilla warfare, which means surprise attacks when the enemy is disrupted, when they cannot think of being attacked. That time Chandragupta used to attack them, and also there were large scale battles fought by Chandragupta Maurya in order to secure victory. Key battle strategies include direct assault on the capital Patliputra. So Patliputra was not only the capital of Mauryan Empire, but before that Patliputra was the capital of Magadhan Empire and then later the Nanda Empire. So his key battle strategies included direct assault on the capital and also different kind of guerrilla warfare tactics. His rise was significantly supported by popular dissatisfaction with the Nanda rule. So, people were not at all happy with the policies of Nanda rule, especially the last Nanda ruler, Dhanananda. I have told about Dhanananda in the second urbanization series, so please go through that video. So, his rise was supported by people's dissatisfaction with the Nanda rule. The people who were unhappy with the Nanda rule supported him a lot. Consolidated his power quickly after the fall of Nandas, establishing the Maurya Empire. So, after the fall of Nanda, he very quickly organized and consolidated his power over the entire territory of the Nandas and thus forming the Mauryan Empire. Now, engagement with Seleucus Nicator. Seleucus I or Seleucus Nicator was a general of Alexander who engaged with Chandragupta Maurya both in a diplomatic and military campaign. So, how was that engagement and what was the result of it? After defeating the Nandas, Chandragupta's next major challenge came from the west, Seleucus Nicator, a general of Alexander the Great. So after Alexander died, he employed several generals who were very powerful militarily and administratively to control the empire. Therefore, Chandragupta, while his western campaign came into a challenge with Seleucus Nicator, who was a great general of Alexander, engaged in conflict resulting in a peace treaty in around 303 BC, which expanded Maurya control into the Hellenistic regions. So there was a war fought between Chandragupta Maurya and Seleucus Nicator, which resulted in peace treaty in around 303 BC, and thus Mauryan Empire extended into the Hellenistic regions. Now, when the Mauryan Empire extends, that means that Mauryan or Chandragupta Maurya must have been victorious. The treaty included marital alliances and transfer of 500 war elephants to Seleucus. So Chandragupta Maurya gifted 500 war elephants to Seleucus Nicator and received Seleucus' daughter in hand in marriage, gained vast territories including what is now modern Afghanistan and parts of Iran. So Mauryan Empire extended right into Afghanistan and parts of Iran. Thus Seleucus was defeated and a lot of territorial possessions was gained by Chandragupta Maurya. The diplomatic victory significantly enhanced the Maurya Empire's international stature. So, defeating a general of Alexander the Great was a significant event not only in Indian history but in world history, and thus the victory of Chandragupta Maurya over the greatest general of Alexander solidified the position of Indian rulers in international stature. Administrative innovations. What were the administrative innovations implied by Chandragupta Maurya? Introduced a centralized administrative system dividing the empire into provinces managed by loyal governors. So the empire was very big and therefore it had to be divided into different provinces, and each province was managed by a governor who was loyal to the throne. Thus, the administration was centralized, with provinces being divided and managed by loyal governors. Developed an efficient taxation and revenue system that supported the state and military expenses. So there was an efficient system for tax collection, and the amount of revenue or the amount of tax which were to be paid by the subjects depended on daily or regular surveys. Therefore, there was a revenue system that supported the state and military expenses which were borne by the state. Instituted legal reforms to unify and regulate the diverse practices across his vast empire. So there were not only administrative or military organization, there was also organization on the field of judiciary and legality. Therefore, many legal reforms was there to unify and regulate the diverse practices across his empire. He prioritized infrastructure, including roads and irrigation system, to enhance trade and agriculture. An empire cannot function without effective and proper infrastructure. Therefore, he prioritized infrastructures like building roads, building irrigation system that enhanced agriculture and trade. Emphasized the importance of public welfare, setting up hospitals and public services. So it it was not only that he prioritized infrastructure, he also gave importance to public welfare things like setting up hospitals and public services. Now, economic policies and his impact. What were the economic policies uh, that were implemented by Chandragupta Maurya, and what was their impact? Chandragupta's economic strategies focused on increasing agricultural output and stabilizing internal trade. So, internal trade was very much hampered by frequent conflict among the Mahajanapadas before Chandragupta. But when Chandragupta conquered the whole of northern, western, and central India, he stabilized the internal trade, and thus there was ample time where he dedicated his resources to the increase of agricultural output. He promoted the use of standardized weights and measures to facilitate commerce. So, in order to have a proper commercial transaction, you need to have standardized system of weights and measures. That was promoted by Chandragupta Maurya. He encouraged trade with other empires, including including trade through Silk Road, increasing the wealth and prosperity of his empire. So Silk Route trade through Silk Route has been significant connection and the reason for prosperity between Asia and Europe. Therefore, he encouraged trade with other empires. The major Hellenistic empire was very much in connection with Chandragupta Maurya, and also he promoted trade through the Silk Road. This was very much significant because for the first time trade through Silk Road was done during the time of Chandragupta Maurya. He implemented policies to protect and promote artisans and traders. All the trade routes were very much secured with proper security features like forts and encampments of his army at regular intervals. Thus, he implemented policies to protect and promote artisans and traders. Economic reforms were led and the foundation for prosperity during Mauryan dynasty began. So thus with a lot of economic improvements in policies, the impact was such that Mauryan empire rose into prosperity. Now, expansion into Deccan. Chandragupta Maurya did not only expand his territories to the west of India, but also he expanded to the Deccan, extending his empire into the Deccan, leveraging military might and strategic alliances. So, he expanded his territory into the central part of Indian peninsula, that is the Deccan area, and thus we come to know that he had huge military might, and also he implemented the strategy to make alliances with local rulers. Conquest in Deccan were aimed at accessing the rich resource and trade routes of southern India. So Deccan was very much resourceful both in mineral and commercial activities. Therefore, conquest of Deccan were aimed at the accessing the rich mineral deposits which are resources, and also it opened the trade routes towards the southern India and uh, subsequently towards the southern Asian part of Indian subcontinent. The southern campaign resulted in significant battles and integration of local chieftains through diplomatic means. So it was not only that he conquered the whole of South India or the whole of Deccan part of South India through battles. He also implemented proper diplomatic strategies through which he formed alliances with local chieftains. References to his southern conquest are found in the writings of Dr. Raichaudhuri, who noted the strategic importance of these expansions. So, Dr. Raichaudhuri is a famous historian who studied a lot about the southern conquest of Chandragupta Maurya. His administration in the south laid the groundwork for further expansion by his successor. So, the groundwork that he did in southern India by conquering and implementing different administrative and trading policies were the basis upon which his successors led further expansions. Now, cultural impact and patronage. What was the cultural impact of his rule, and did he did he patronized art and culture? Encouraged the flourishing of arts, philosophy, and science during his reign. So he was a very cultural ruler who valued art, philosophy, and science. Patronized scholars and artists, creating a vibrant cultural scene at his court. So his court was very much vibrant with scholars, artists, and different kind of sculptural icons being present. Fostered the development of Sanskrit literature and language, helping standardize it across the empire. So, Sanskrit became a standard language for the whole of India at the time of Chandragupta Maurya. Many people believe that Sanskrit was implemented by the Gupta rulers, but no, Sanskrit was developed into a standard language in the whole of Indian subcontinent by Chandragupta Maurya, and later on it was popularized by the Gupta emperors. Supported religious diversity reflecting Jain, Buddhist, and Hindu influences within the empire. So he was a very tolerant ruler, like many other ancient Indian rulers. He was very much tolerant, and in his reign, Jain, Buddhist, and Hindu influences are very much visible. Chandragupta's reign marked an era of significant cultural synthesis and advancement. So, during the reign of Chandragupta Maurya, there was prosperity in the field of art, philosophy, science, and culture. Now, religious policies and the end of his reign. What was his religious policy and how did his reign come to an end? Initially supported various religious traditions, later in life converted to Jainism under the influence of Jain monk Vadravahu. So he initially supported various religious traditions, but later on he went forward with the conversion into Jainism under the influence of a Jain monk called Vadravahu. Now, he converted into Jainism doesn't mean that the entire state religion became Jainism. No, Hindus and Buddhists were, as usual, doing through with their religion, but he personally converted into Jainism. His conversion led to significant support for Jain institutions and teachings. Now, when the greatest emperor of Indian subcontinent personally converts to Jain, then obviously there will be a significant support of resources towards the Jain institutions and teachings. Chandragupta abdicated his throne in favor of his son Bindusar to adopt an ascetic life. So later on in his life, he became an ascetic. This is very much significant because this is an emperor who was not power hungry and did not remain in throne stubbornly until his death. When he felt that his work had been done, when he felt that it was the time for his son to become the emperor, he abdicated his throne voluntarily and adopted a life of an ascetic. He eventually undertook Sallekhana, the Jain ritual of fasting to death at Saravana Vela Gola. So, this was the place where he undertook the policy of Sallekhana, which means he will fast until he dies. So, that was the kind of asceticism he practiced at the end of his life. His religious shift had lasting impacts on the religious landscape of Mauryan Empire and influenced subsequent generations. Now, Greek and Latin sources on Chandragupta. There were significant amount of diplomatic and political exchanges between the Hellenistic empires and that of the Mauryan dynasty. So there must have been a lot of Greek sources about Chandragupta Maurya. What were they and how do they interpret Chandragupta as the ruler? Greek accounts by Megasthenes through his work Indica provide the foreign perspective of the Mauryan Empire. So Megasthenes was an ambassador of Seleucus Nicator in in the court of Chandragupta Maurya when he came after defeat of Seleucus in the hands of Chandragupta. Therefore, he wrote the book Indica, which is very much significant in providing the foreign perspective of Mauryan Empire. I have made an entire video on Indica by Megasthenes. You can go through it if you want information regarding Indica in a detailed manner. Describe the administration, social structure, and vastness of Chandragupta's empire. So, the Indica by Megasthenes does not survive. We come to know about Indica from the writings of other Greek philosophers who referenced the writings of Megasthenes in order to discuss about India. And from those writings, we know that Mauryan Empire was very much great on the perspective of administration, social structure, and the entirety of its empire. Latin references include writings from Plutarch and Justin, who highlighted the the military might and political strategies of Chandragupta. So these are the philosophers who highlighted the military might and political strategies of Chandragupta Maurya. These sources are crucial for cross verifying the Indian historical accounts and understanding the external perception of Mauryan Empire. So these sources not only provide the foreign perspective of Mauryan Empire but also provide us a source to verify the Indian history through the foreign sources. Offer insights into the interactions between the Hellenistic world and ancient India during Chandragupta's reign. Now, Chandragupta's army and warfare tactics. What was his army like, and what are the warfare tactics he implemented? The army was very well organized, consisting of infantry, cavalry, charioteers, and elephant units. So, there were different regiments in the army, well versed with their occupations. Therefore, it was very much well organized. Emphasize the use of psychological warfare, espionage, and surprise attacks in the military strategy. So it was not proper direct war always being fought during the time of Chandragupta. He employed the psychological warfare tactics, spy networks. Through different kinds of spy networks, he had a very much efficient espionage strategies, and he also launched surprise attacks in his enemy. Therefore, there were a diversification of warfare tactics. Chandragupta, his chief advisor and strategist, authored the Arthashastra, which detailed military strategy and statecraft. In the text of Arthashastra, Chanakya, who was the chief advisor of Chandragupta Maurya, detailed different kinds of military strategies. I have made a separate video on Arthashastra where you can go through it. His military campaigns were noted for their strategic depth and effective use of terrain. So, not only did he have great strategy, but he also included geography into formation of his military tactics. The success of his military endeavors allowed for rapid expansion and consolidation of the Maurya Empire. The success of his entire military or historic career was very much fueled by his military endeavors and efficient and well organized army. Now, epigraphic evidence of Chandragupta's rule. Inscriptions like Junagadh rock inscription provide evidence of administrative practices and territorial extent under Chandragupta. So here we find an evidence of Chandragupta's welfare strategies in the Junagadh rock inscription. Now it is to be remembered that Junagadh rock inscription was not commissioned by Chandragupta Maurya. It was commissioned by the Shaka ruler Rudradaman in about 150 AD, which is approximately 400 years after Chandragupta's reign. Therefore, we understand the significance or the impact of Chandragupta's rule, where a ruler 400 years later is describing a welfare strategy that was made by Chandragupta. These inscriptions are pivotal for the understanding of governance and historical context of his empire. Like in Junagadh inscription, we find that Chandragupta started the building of a dam to supply proper irrigation to the central part of his empire, or the western central part of his empire. Thus, through these inscriptions, we get to understand the governance and historical context. Epigraphic records also highlight the economic and legal reforms implemented during his reign. So, from the epigraphic records, we get to know a lot about the economic and legal reforms which were implemented during his time. It helps us to decode the day to day workings of the empire and societal norms which were established. It offers a direct link to the period, serving as primary source for modern historical analysis. We have a saying in archaeology that stones do not lie. So whatever is written in epigraphical text can be considered to be true, and thus it offers a direct link to the period which it describes. Now, conquest of Western India. We will discuss in depth about how his conquest to the western part of India was done. Chandragupta's strategies extended his influence to the western regions, integrating various cultural and economic zones into his empire, mainly the Hellenistic dynasties which ruled in the western part of Indian subcontinent. He engaged in significant battles and diplomatic negotiations with western territories post Alexander's era. So, fighting wars and defeating generals of Alexander is very much significant, where it projects the military might of Indian rulers. His interactions with Hellenistic states shaped the subsequent cultural and political landscape of the region. So there was a connection done between different Hellenistic states and the Mauryan dynasty, which was the first prominent empire in the Indian subcontinent, and thus we get cross cultural references and also an hybrid culture called the Indo-Greeks, which will come to rule the western part of Indian subcontinent after the Mauryan dynasties. The marriage alliances with Seleucus' daughter, as suggested by some sources, symbolizes the blend of Greek and Indian royal lineages. So there was a blend of Greek and Indian royal lineages through the marriage of Seleucus' daughter with Chandragupta Maurya. These conquests and interactions underscored the strategic importance of Western India in Chandragupta's imperial vision. Now, legacy and historical significance. What was the legacy of Chandragupta Maurya and how is he significant in Indian history? Chandragupta Maurya is considered as a pioneer in creation of a unified Indian state. His governance model set the standard for future rulers in India and influenced administrative practices across Asia. So even after thousand years after the death of Chandragupta Maurya, we find different Indian rulers referencing to his work as an example or a model of governance. Thus, we come to know about his legacy. Remembered for his role in spreading Indian culture and political ideals beyond traditional boundaries. So he spread Indian culture into the western part of Indian subcontinent and significantly towards the European powers, and thus his He is very much remembered for his role in spreading Indian culture beyond the traditional boundaries of other Indian empires before him. His life and empire are studied as exemplary models in military strategy, statecraft, and governance. Chandragupta's story is immortalized in Indian tradition and continues to inspire leadership and governance discussions even today. Even today, he is revered as one of the greatest rulers in Indian history. Now, Chandragupta's economic reforms. How were his economic reforms? Introduction of standardized measures for trade facilitated a more robust and fair market system. So, there was standardized ways, as I have said before, and that facilitated for a stable administration in the field of trade and commerce. Development of trade routes that linked the empire internally with the neighboring states increased economic stability. Different kind of infrastructures were undertaken to supply uh, the traders with proper facilities. Tax reforms ensured a steady revenue stream that supported extensive military and administrative expenditures. Agricultural innovations improved yields, contributing to surplus production that supported growing population and urbanization. Economic policies aimed at increasing wealth of the empire through careful management of resources and trade. Now, one of the most significant characters in the whole of Indian history, who was the pivotal figure for the rise of Chandragupta Maurya, was Chanakya, who is also called as Kautilya or Vishnugupta. We will learn what kind of role did he play in Chandragupta's prosperity and becoming the empire emperor that we know him as today. Chanakya is also known as Kautilya or Vishnugupta, who was the chief advisor and strategist of Chandragupta. He authored Arthashastra, an ancient Indian treatise on statecraft, economic policy, and military strategy. If you want to know more about Arthashastra, please go through my video on Arthashastra. His guidance was crucial in Chandragupta's initial rise to power and subsequent establishment of Mauryan Empire. Chanakya's teachings emphasize the importance of intelligence, diplomacy, and espionage in governance. He provided information and formulated strategies on different aspects of administration like espionage, military, diplomacy, and also bureaucracy. His role exemplifies the blend of intellectual and practical approaches to expanding and maintaining an empire. His strategies are consulted even today for any kind of development in Indian subcontinent. Chandragupta's successors. Who were the successors of Chandragupta and how were they significant? Bindushar succeeded Chandragupta and continued to expand the empire, although a little is recorded about his reign. So we get to know very little about Bindushar, but no doubt he was a very significant character because he succeeded Chandragupta Maurya and continued to expand the empire for about 30 years after Chandragupta abdicated his throne. Ashoka, Chandragupta's grandson, is one of the most celebrated rulers in Indian history, known for his role in spreading Buddhism. Ashok is considered to be one of the greatest rulers in not only Indian history but whole world, and thus we get to know a lot about Mauryan dynasty and spread of Buddhism from the reign of Ashok. The Mauryan Empire reached its territorial peak under Ashok, who also implemented significant social and religious reforms. So, Ashok did not only militarily conquer the whole of Indian subcontinent but also implemented many social and religious reforms. The legacy of governance and administrative practices established by Chandragupta was carried forward by his successors. So his policies were carried forward very efficiently by his successors, especially Bindusar and Ashok. The Maurya dynasty's influence lasted long after its decline, impacting regional politics and culture in subsequent centuries. Now, Chandragupta's historical impact. Here we will go through a summary of the entire presentation. Chandragupta Maurya's formation of Maurya Empire represents a pivotal movement in South Asian history. This was the first empire in the whole of Indian subcontinent and that of Asia. His strategies in warfare, administration, and diplomacy set the foundational principles for governance of vast empires. Chandragupta's adaptation of various cultural influences facilitated a unique synthesis that enriched the Indian subcontinent. His life and reign demonstrate the possibilities of visionary leadership and strategic governance. Chandragupta Maurya remains a central figure in the study of ancient empires and their legacies, inspiring continued research and scholarly interest. So that was all about the first emperor in the whole of Asia and Indian subcontinent who made India a prominent power in international sphere. Hope you have liked the video because it's a story from rags to riches, and with your support I aim to bring forward many such stories in future. So please don't forget to support me as you have done always. With your love and support, I promise to bring brighter contents in future. Thank you so much.